a great roundtable talking both with pharmacists as well as with patients, as well as community organizations that help people access their health benefits, talking about the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act and the cap on insulin, as well as allowing Medicare to negotiate for lower drug prices, something that we finally were able to deliver. And then also a little bit about the Pharmacy Benefits Manager Transparency Act.
How will it help, especially because we're at please correct me if I'm wrong, a family-owned pharmacy? How will this bill, I guess how will it help those family-owned pharmacies?
Well, definitely, the fact that Medicare can negotiate for lower drug prices is going to be significant. It's something we've been working on now for over 18 years, and Democrats delivered. It's something that I've been talking about for well over 10 years, that allowing them to use the power of Medicare mass purchase to bring down the cost of prescription drugs is going to allow our community pharmacists to provide those medicines to their customers at those reduced costs, but especially when folks are coming forward and they're having to make these really terrible choices between medicine or food, and this will allow seniors to be able to basically sustain themselves.
And what do you have to say to your Republican counterparts who voted against the bill?
I don't know how they could do it, how they would vote against this, but they did. Not a single Republican voted for this bill. Not a single Republican supported the cap. $35 cap on insulin. Not a single Republican voted for this bill to allow Medicare to negotiate for lower drug prices. And it really, shows folks that when you put Democrats in charge, we deliver for folks, everyday hardworking Americans, and we take on big pharma.
What were some of the arguments put forth by the Republicans as to why they're not supported?
You know what? I think it was purely partisan on their part. I don't think they have any good arguments for it. What I'm very proud of with the Inflation Reduction Act is that it is going to bring down inflation. It is lowering costs for people, and it also lowers the deficit by almost $500 million. So not only are we providing more resources for hardworking Americans, we're also reducing the nation's budget the deficit as well.
What about you? What are you proud of, looking forward to with this piece of legislation?
I think these type of initiatives, especially with the insulin costs and looking at out-of-pocket caps, helps ensure that patients maintain access to medications. And the things that hopefully this also encourages more conversations between Medicare beneficiaries and their pharmacists. Because I think the more that pharmacists are engaged with the patient, helping lower drug costs and helping find alternatives to that as well. And hopefully these conversations can happen, and also linking people with other services that they may not know are available.
Is there also anything in this bill, because I know it's you have Medicaid and Medicare, or is it Medicaid?
Medicare.
Okay, thank you.
It's a fairly large bill that has many components. We were today talking with the pharmacy, the healthcare portion of it, but the bill also has an environmental aspect to it, and I'm very proud of that. The bill has provisions in it that are going to bring our nation's CO2 emissions down to 40% below 2005 levels. So we will be really on the path to a carbon neutral future. I'm very, very proud of all the things we were able to put in this bill to get it passed. And at the same time, while we are, as Democrats, delivering for the American people, we're also reducing the nation's deficit as well.
You talk about in the bill that there's environmental stuff, and the Illinois state legislature, they have passed a lot of environmental friendly bills. Does anything go kind of hand in hand with that? Because I know there's an electrical vehicle rebate here in the state. So is there anything in this bill that'll kind of like go hand in hand with matching that?
Definitely. So there are rebates for electric vehicles. There are all sorts of incentives for clean energy, and I've been talking to actually foreign companies like Samsung. They're actually looking at Illinois because of the rebates at the state level, but then also coming to the United States because I said, look, we've got Rivian in Normal. We need a battery manufacturer, and getting them to bring a battery factory to Illinois so that we can create more jobs. And this is what's happening all across the state because our state got our house in order fiscally and had a capital budget. When, for example, Democrats passed a bipartisan infrastructure deal where I brought in, $5-6 billion to the state of Illinois, the state was ready to do those road projects because the state had gotten their fiscal house in order. Similarly, when it comes to green energy, it's the same thing. The state has made those investments already, and when I come in with the federal dollars, we're able to be the front of the line in front of all of the other states to attract new businesses to come to Illinois and to do things like manufacture solar panels. We passed the CHIPS Act. All of these things, Illinois is uniquely positioned to take advantage of them. And so it's a real partnership between me at the federal level and then our governor here at the state level working together to deliver for the people.
We have time for one more question.
Going back to the drug talks, so some other states have taken more extreme measures, and California in particular has gone out of the way to say they're going to reduce insulin. So with a bill like this passing, are Illinois Democrats considering more extreme measures? Do you feel this is a good balance point right now?
Well, you'll have to ask a state legislature. I work at the federal level, and I'm doing everything that I can to bring down costs at the federal level. You have to understand that the big pharmaceutical companies play all sorts of games. And some of them, it's not even the big pharma. Sometimes it's actually in Wall Street investment types who will come in and buy out a generic manufacturer and then shut them down so that there's only the brand name, and so you're forced to buy just the brand name. And then you also have, what Big Pharma would do is you have a drug that they sell in a 50 milligram pill, but then they will, just as the patent is about to expire, they'll turn around and say, okay, instead of 50 milligram pill, we'll now only manufacture 25 milligram pills. That restarts our patent, and we're not going to sell the 50 milligram. And so then they have this monopoly over the same medication. It's been around for literally a decade or more. And so that's where I'm working to really go after these really terrible practices by Big Pharma. Because anytime I look at a person who's an 81-year-old like my mom, who's like having to choose between, can I afford my insulin or do I afford food? And yet you've got Big Pharma making record prices. They're paying their executives record high prices. I'm going to be on the side and in the fight for the working families. And that's why we wanted to make sure that there's this cap, and also to allow Medicare to negotiate for lower drug prices. Something, by the way, the VA has been able to do for many, many years now. And in fact, when I was state director of Veterans Affairs here in Illinois, I moved the 4 Illinois veterans homes under the VA formulary, and that saved the state millions of dollars because we were able to take advantage of VA being able to negotiate for lower drug prices. And yet all this time, Republicans have opposed allowing Medicare to negotiate, and we were able to finally, with this bill, all Democrats pass it. So we're going to start with 10 drugs, and we're going to work towards more later.